The Galactic Military Academy's asteroid base was a marvel of engineering, suspended in the infinite void of space. Its sleek design, with glowing blue and silver architecture, was both beautiful and intimidating. This wasn't just any training facility, it was the beating heart of intergalactic military excellence, where only the best warriors, soldiers, and tacticians across the galaxy came to test their mettle. Every year, the Academy hosted the prestigious Intergalactic Combat Games, an event that showcased the unique strengths of species from every corner of the known universe. Among the various competitions, one event always stood out: the Elite Sniper Challenge. It was a test of precision, reflexes, and strategy, pitting the galaxy's top sharpshooters against one another in a spectacle of skill and intensity. For the past 5 years, the undisputed champion had been Krill Tok, a member of the Vrexian species. Known for their extraordinary eyesight, which could detect even the faintest movements from miles away, and their advanced neuroprocessors, the Vrexians were naturally suited for long-range combat. Krill Tok was no exception. His record was flawless. Every shot had hit its target with deadly accuracy. This year, however, the competition had a surprising entrant, a human soldier named Sergeant Ryan Pierce. When the roster was first announced, murmurs of disbelief spread across the Academy. Humans were widely regarded as one of the more primitive species in the galactic community. They lacked the advanced biological adaptations of other races, and their technology, while innovative, was often considered clunky and inefficient compared to the sleek advancements of the galaxy's older civilizations. In the Academy's vast holographic auditorium, the announcement of Ryan's participation was met with jeers and laughter. Krill Tok himself smirked, his sharp, chitinous jaw clicking in amusement as he leaned back in his chair, surrounded by a group of his Vrexian admirers. "Primitive apes," Krill Tok muttered under his breath, the translator on his wrist conveying his words in galactic standard. What do they hope to prove by sending one of their kind here? A waste of time. But Ryan didn't flinch at the ridicule. Standing at the back of the auditorium, dressed in the standard-issue military uniform of Earth's United Nations Space Corps, he observed the crowd with calm determination. His commanding officer, a wiry man named Colonel Vasquez, had warned him about this reaction. "They'll underestimate you," Vasquez had said during their briefing back on Earth. "That's your advantage. Let them laugh. Just focus on the mission." As the event drew closer, the tension within the Academy escalated. Each competitor was given access to the training simulations to prepare for the challenge. These simulations weren't just advanced, they were alive, adapting dynamically to the movements and strategies of the participant. Competitors had to navigate holographic environments, dodge enemy fire, and hit moving targets, all while under intense time constraints. Ryan spent hours in the simulator, perfecting his technique. Unlike Krill Tok, who relied on his species' natural advantages and advanced targeting systems, Ryan had to rely on something far more primal: instinct. He studied the patterns of the targets, anticipating their movements rather than reacting to them. His strategy wasn't just about speed, it was about unpredictability. Word quickly spread about his unorthodox methods. While most competitors followed the standard approach, staying in one spot and using advanced optics to lock onto their targets, Ryan was constantly on the move, dodging and weaving through the simulated battlefield. His movements were erratic, almost chaotic, making it nearly impossible for the simulator to predict his position. Among the spectators, opinions began to shift. While many still doubted his chances against Krill Tok, a growing number of cadets from other species started to see the potential in Ryan's strategy. The day of the challenge finally arrived. The arena, a massive dome made of reinforced plasma glass, floated above the asteroid's surface, offering a breathtaking view of the galaxy. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. The audience, a mix of cadets, officers, and dignitaries from across the galaxy, filled the stands, their cheers and conversations blending into a cacophony of anticipation. Ryan stood in the preparation area, adjusting his gear. His uniform had been modified for the challenge, incorporating lightweight armor and a visor that displayed a real-time HUD. Unlike the Vrexians, who relied on neural uplinks and bio-enhanced reflexes, Ryan's equipment was decidedly low-tech. It was a deliberate choice. He wanted to prove that humans didn't need the crutch of advanced tech to compete, they only needed their wits. Across the room, Krilltalk was surrounded by his entourage, who were busy fine-tuning his sniper rifle. The weapon, a sleek piece of Vrexian engineering, emitted a faint hum as it charged up, its glowing barrel a testament to its destructive power. Krilltalk glanced at Ryan, his mandibles clicking in what could only be interpreted as amusement. "Ready to lose, human?" Krilltalk taunted, his voice dripping with condescension. Ryan didn't respond. Instead, he simply smiled, a calm, confident smile that seemed to unnerve the Vrexian champion. The rules of the Elite Sniper Challenge were simple. Competitors had to navigate a simulated battlefield and eliminate as many holographic targets as possible within a set time limit. The battlefield was constantly shifting, with obstacles appearing and disappearing at random intervals, forcing participants to adapt on the fly. The first round began with Krilltalk taking his position on a high platform, his rifle already locked and loaded. The crowd watched in awe as he quickly picked off target after target, his precision unmatched. Every shot was a direct hit, the holographic targets disintegrating in bursts of light. Then it was Ryan's turn. As he stepped onto the battlefield, the crowd fell silent, their eyes glued to the human soldier. The timer started, and Ryan immediately began to move, darting between obstacles with incredible speed. His movements were erratic, almost impossible to follow, as he used the environment to his advantage. The targets were programmed to react to the competitors' movements, but Ryan's unpredictability threw them off. He fired his rifle with precision, hitting targets even as he dodged incoming fire. Unlike Krilltalk, who relied on stationary positions and advanced optics, Ryan's strategy was fluid, adapting to the ever-changing battlefield. By the end of the round, the scoreboard displayed an unexpected result. Ryan had matched Krilltalk's score, much to the shock of the audience. As Ryan stepped off the battlefield, a wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Krilltalk, watching from the sidelines, was visibly annoyed. For the first time in his career, he had encountered an opponent he couldn't easily dismiss. The human soldier had made his mark, but the real challenge was yet to come. The battlefield simulator for the second round was unlike anything most participants had ever seen. Designed to test not only a sniper's precision but their adaptability and endurance, the environment shifted dynamically. It was a complex maze of holographic terrain that simulated alien landscapes, from barren deserts under blazing suns to dense alien jungles with moving flora. For this round, the competition grew fiercer, the stakes higher, and the audience's interest more intense. The scoreboard, now showing a tie between Ryan and Krilltalk, cast a long shadow over the arena. For Krilltalk, this was more than just a competition, it was a matter of pride. For Ryan, it was a chance to prove that humanity's unpredictability could triumph against seemingly insurmountable odds. As the simulation began, the environment shimmered, and the audience collectively gasped. A thick alien jungle materialized, its massive trees glowing faintly in the simulated twilight. The air appeared heavy with digital humidity, and faint chirps and rustles from holographic wildlife filled the space. Targets were scattered randomly throughout the jungle, many hidden behind thick vegetation or perched on branches high above. The rules for this round were straightforward. Each competitor had to eliminate as many targets as possible within 15 minutes. But there was a twist. Moving decoys would attempt to distract the participants, and the competitors would lose points for hitting these non-targets. Accuracy and focus were paramount. Krilltalk stepped forward first, his confidence unshaken. As a Vrexian, his species' multi-layered vision allowed him to detect even the faintest movements. His neural uplinks synced with his rifle, providing real-time targeting assistance. The audience watched in awe as Krilltalk began to systematically take down targets. His shots were clean, efficient, and almost mechanical in their precision. Even the moving decoys failed to distract him. He ignored them completely, focusing only on the real targets. "Typical Krill talk," one of the Vrexians in the audience murmured. "Predictable perfection." When Krill Talk's timer ended, the scoreboard updated. He had scored an impressive 48 points, losing none to distractions. Then it was Ryan's turn. As Ryan stepped into the simulation area, the jungle shimmered back into place. Unlike Krill Talk, who had taken a stationary position, Ryan immediately started moving. His body language was focused but loose, his breathing steady. The audience leaned forward, curious about how the human soldier would approach this round. The first targets appeared two stationary and one moving slowly across a fallen log. Ryan aimed quickly, firing 3 shots in rapid succession. All 3 hit their marks. A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd, but it was clear that the human's strategy was different. He wasn't relying on precision alone, he was relying on instinct. As more targets appeared, Ryan's movements became even more unpredictable. He sprinted through the jungle, leaping over roots and sliding under low-hanging branches. His strategy was risky. By staying mobile, he exposed himself to more distractions and increased the likelihood of missing a shot. But this was Ryan's strength, adapting to chaos. When a group of moving decoys emerged, scattering across his path, the audience held their breath. Krill Talk had ignored the decoys entirely. But Ryan didn't hesitate. Instead of avoiding them, he used them to his advantage. He timed his shots between their movements, hitting 3 hidden targets in quick succession while weaving through the confusion. From the sidelines, Krill Talk watched with growing irritation. The human's erratic strategy defied everything he knew about sniping. Where Krill Talk relied on precision and technology, Ryan seemed to thrive on improvisation. His unpredictable movements made it difficult for anyone, even Krill Talk, to anticipate his next move. "What is he doing?" one of the Vrexians muttered. "That's not sniping. That's madness." But madness or not, it was working. With every target Ryan hit, the audience grew more enthralled. Even the Academy's instructors, who had initially dismissed Ryan as a mere curiosity, began to nod in approval. Halfway through the round, the jungle environment shifted dramatically. The terrain morphed into a rocky canyon with steep cliffs and narrow ledges. This change favored Krill Talk's precision-based style, as the high vantage points provided clear lines of sight. Ryan, however, adapted instantly. Instead of climbing to a high position, he stayed low, using the rocky outcrops as cover. The targets in this section were smaller and faster, darting between rocks and occasionally disappearing from view. Krill Talk had taken these out effortlessly during his turn, his rifle's advanced tracking system locking onto them with ease. Ryan, lacking such technology, relied entirely on his reflexes and intuition. At one point, a particularly fast-moving target zipped across the canyon wall. The audience gasped as Ryan turned sharply, fired, and hit it squarely. The holographic scoreboard lit up with the points, and cheers erupted from the stands. By the end of the canyon section, Ryan had matched Krill Talk's earlier score. With only a few minutes remaining, the tension in the arena was palpable. As the timer ticked down, Ryan faced his most difficult challenge yet. The simulation introduced a swarm of holographic drones, each one moving erratically and emitting a high-pitched noise meant to distract the competitors. The real targets were hidden among the swarm, their movements nearly indistinguishable. Krill Talk had struggled slightly with this section, losing precious seconds trying to differentiate the real targets from the decoys. Ryan, however, didn't hesitate. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a moment, and then opened them with a renewed focus. His strategy was simple: trust his instincts. One by one, the real targets fell. Ryan's shots were precise yet fluid, almost as if he were performing a dance rather than competing in a sniper challenge. When the final buzzer sounded, the crowd erupted into cheers. The scoreboard updated, revealing Ryan's score 51 points, 3 more than Krill Talk. As Ryan stepped out of the simulator, he was greeted by a mix of stunned silence and raucous applause. The audience, many of whom had doubted his abilities, now regarded him with newfound respect. Even some of Krilltalk's Rexian supporters couldn't help but clap. Krilltalk, however, was less impressed. His mandibles twitched in irritation as he approached Ryan. For a moment, it seemed as though the Vrexian might say something, but he simply stared at the human soldier before turning away. Ryan, for his part, didn't gloat. He simply nodded to the crowd, acknowledging their cheers, before walking back to the preparation area. He knew the battle wasn't over yet. There was still one more round to go, and Krilltalk wouldn't take this loss lightly. The arena buzzed with electric anticipation as the final round of the Elite Sniper Challenge was about to begin. The score remained close, with Sergeant Ryan Pierce leading by a narrow margin of just 3 points. For the first time in 5 years, Krilltalk's victory was no longer a foregone conclusion. The Vrexian champion sat at his designated station, his mandibles clicking rhythmically, a telltale sign of his frustration. Across from him, Ryan adjusted his gear with a calm focus, unfazed by the tension in the air. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena, amplified by the advanced holographic sound system. Final round tactical combat engagement. Contestants will face an adaptive battlefield, programmed to test their strategic thinking and combat precision. Targets will be both hostile and neutral, requiring competitors to differentiate between threats. Hitting a neutral target will result in penalties. Let the match begin. The lights dimmed, and the arena shimmered as the new simulation loaded. The environment transitioned to a sprawling, industrial wasteland complete with towering metallic ruins, flickering neon signs, and eerie, artificial fog. The setting was not only visually complex but layered with environmental hazards designed to challenge even the most seasoned competitors. Krilltalk was up first. As he stepped into the simulated battlefield, his posture exuded determination. The Vrexian wasn't just fighting to win, he was fighting to reclaim his pride. His neural uplink buzzed to life, feeding him real-time data about the battlefield. The crowd watched in silence, their eyes glued to the massive holographic displays that showcased his every move. The first wave of targets appeared, a mix of stationary and moving hostiles, interspersed with holographic civilians. Without hesitation, Krilltalk began firing, each shot a masterclass in precision. His rifle's advanced targeting system glowed faintly, locking onto enemies with unerring accuracy. The hostile targets disintegrated in bursts of light, while the neutral figures remained untouched. Halfway through his round, the simulation introduced an unexpected challenge: a series of drones that released bursts of electromagnetic interference, temporarily disabling his targeting system. For the first time, Krilltalk had to rely solely on his instincts. The crowd leaned forward, their collective breath held as the Vrexian adapted to the setback. Though his movements became less fluid, his natural abilities still shone through. By the end of his round, Krilltalk had amassed an impressive 65 points. The scoreboard updated, and the crowd erupted in cheers. The reigning champion had made his comeback. As Krilltalk exited the battlefield, he cast a sideways glance at Ryan, his mandibles clicking in what could only be interpreted as a challenge. Ryan met his gaze with quiet confidence, then stepped into the simulation area. The industrial wasteland shimmered back into view, and the timer began counting down. From the outset, Ryan's approach was drastically different from Krilltalk's. While the Vrexian had relied on his natural precision and advanced technology, Ryan leaned into his adaptability. He moved swiftly and unpredictably, using the ruins and fog as cover. The first wave of targets appeared, and Ryan dispatched them with remarkable efficiency. Unlike Krilltalk, who favored calculated, long-range shots, Ryan engaged the targets mid-motion, often firing while on the move. The simulation soon introduced the same electromagnetic interference that had challenged Krilltalk. But where the Vrexian had stumbled, Ryan thrived. Without a targeting system to rely on, he reverted to pure instinct, his shots guided by quick reflexes and years of training. The crowd watched in awe as Ryan took out a series of moving targets, even hitting one while diving behind cover. As the round progressed, the simulation threw its most devious challenge yet, a group of decoys that mimicked hostile targets. These holographic figures moved and acted like enemies but bore subtle differences that only a keen observer could detect. Krilltalk had avoided them entirely, opting to focus on easier targets. Ryan, however, saw an opportunity. He studied the decoys carefully, identifying their tells a slight delay in their movements, a faint distortion in their holographic projections. While other competitors might have hesitated, Ryan trusted his observations and fired. One by one, the decoys fell, and the scoreboard lit up with bonus points. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers reverberating through the arena. Even some of the Vrexian spectators, who had been staunchly loyal to Krilltalk, couldn't help but admire Ryan's daring strategy. With only 2 minutes remaining, the simulation introduced its final twist: a simulated ambush. Holographic drones swarmed the battlefield, firing bright pulses of light that forced Ryan to take cover. At the same time, a series of targets appeared in the distance, their positions carefully calculated to lure him into the open. Krilltalk, watching from the sidelines, leaned forward, his mandibles twitching in anticipation. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The ambush was designed to punish impulsive competitors, those who relied on brute force rather than careful planning. If Ryan made even one mistake, he would lose the lead. But Ryan wasn't impulsive. He was a strategist. Rather than engaging the distant targets, he turned his attention to the drones, systematically taking them out. With the airspace cleared, he moved swiftly through the ruins, using the terrain to mask his approach. When he finally emerged from cover, the distant targets were perfectly aligned. Ryan fired a series of rapid shots, each one hitting its mark. As the timer reached 0, the simulation ended, and the battlefield dissolved into shimmering particles of light. The scoreboard updated for the final time, revealing Ryan's score 68 points, 3 more than Krilltalk. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. Ryan, breathing heavily but smiling, raised his rifle in acknowledgement. The human soldier had done what many thought impossible. He had outperformed the reigning champion in a competition designed to favor species like the Vrexians. Krilltalk, though visibly disappointed, approached Ryan. For a moment, the two stood in silence, their contrasting forms, a towering Vrexian and a determined human, symbolizing the spirit of the competition. Finally, Krilltalk extended a clawed hand. "Well fought, human," he said, his voice tinged with reluctant respect. "You've earned this victory." Ryan shook his hand, his grip firm. "Thank you. You were a tough opponent." As the two parted ways, the crowd continued to cheer, their enthusiasm a testament to the unprecedented nature of the event. For Ryan, this was more than just a personal triumph, it was a victory for humanity, a moment that proved their place among the galaxy's elite. The atmosphere inside the Galactic Military Academy was electric. The scoreboard, glowing with Ryan's final score of 68 points, stood as a silent testament to an unexpected triumph. The cheers from the diverse audience reverberated throughout the arena, a wave of sound that carried both shock and admiration. For the first time in the competition's history, the reigning champion had been dethroned, not by advanced technology or biological superiority, but by a human soldier armed with ingenuity and grit. As the simulation dissolved into a shimmering cascade of light particles, Ryan Pierce stood in the center of the arena, his rifle slung over his shoulder. His uniform was dusty and torn from the simulation's challenges, but his posture was steady, his expression calm. The crowd's applause was thunderous, a mix of awe and newfound respect for the human race. On the sidelines, Krilltalk stood motionless, his mandibles twitching slightly, a subtle but clear sign of internal conflict. The Vrexian champion had never tasted defeat, and the bitter sting of it was evident. Yet, beneath his frustration, there was something else: grudging admiration. Despite his pride, Krilltalk was an honorable warrior, and he recognized the sheer skill and determination it had taken for Ryan to claim victory. Krilltalk approached Ryan slowly, his towering frame casting a long shadow. The crowd hushed, their eyes fixed on the interaction between the two competitors. For a moment, the air was thick with tension, the possibility of confrontation hanging in the balance. Finally, Krilltalk extended his clawed hand. "You've proven yourself, human," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "I underestimated your kind, and that was my mistake. This victory is yours well earned." Ryan took the Vrexian's hand without hesitation, their grip firm but respectful. "You were a worthy opponent," Ryan replied. "This could have gone either way." The handshake lasted only a few seconds, but it carried a weight far greater than words. It was a symbol of mutual respect, a bridge between two vastly different species. The Grand Hall of the Academy was a spectacle of lights and holograms, its vaulted ceilings adorned with shimmering projections of the galaxy's constellations. The awards ceremony was about to begin, and the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Rows of dignitaries, cadets, and officers from dozens of species filled the audience, their varied appearances creating a mosaic of intergalactic diversity. Ryan stood at the center of the stage, flanked by the competition's other participants. His uniform, now cleaned and pressed, bore the insignia of Earth's United Nations Space Corps. He looked out at the sea of faces, many of whom had once dismissed humanity as primitive. Now they watched him with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. The Academy's headmaster, a stately being known as Velthar, approached the podium. Velthar was a member of the Izeran species, known for their luminous, translucent forms that glowed softly in dim light. As he spoke, his voice carried a melodic quality, amplified by the hall's acoustics. "Today we witness a moment that will be remembered for generations," Velthar began. "The Elite Sniper Challenge has long been a test of precision, skill, and adaptability qualities that define the finest warriors of our galaxy. This year we have seen these qualities exemplified in ways none of us could have anticipated." He turned to Ryan, his glowing eyes radiating approval. "Sergeant Ryan Pierce of Earth, you have demonstrated not only exceptional skill but the resilience and ingenuity that are the hallmarks of your species. Your victory is a reminder that strength lies not in technology or natural advantage alone, but in the unyielding spirit to adapt and overcome." Velthar gestured for Ryan to step forward. As he did, a holographic medal materialized above the podium, its intricate design a blend of metallic and crystalline elements. The medal hovered for a moment before descending into Ryan's hands. The crowd erupted into applause once again, their cheers echoing through the grand hall. After the ceremony, Ryan found himself surrounded by a throng of curious cadets and officers. Many of them were from species that had previously regarded humans with skepticism. Now, they peppered him with questions about his training, his strategy, and the human capacity for adaptability. "You don't use neural uplinks?" a slender, insectoid cadet asked, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "How do you compensate for the lack of predictive algorithms?" Ryan smiled. "Sometimes, not knowing what comes next is an advantage. It keeps you sharp, forces you to think on your feet." Krilltalk, who had been watching from a distance, finally approached. The crowd parted to let him through, their eyes shifting between the former champion and the new victor. "I must admit," Krilltalk said, his tone begrudging but sincere, "I underestimated the value of unpredictability. Your kind has a certain rawness that defies calculation." "Thanks," Ryan replied, his smile faint. "But I wouldn't count humans out next time." Krilltalk's mandibles clicked in what could have been a smile. "Next time I'll be ready." As the event concluded, news of Ryan's victory spread across the galaxy. For humanity, it was more than just a personal achievement, it was a statement to the intergalactic community. Humans, once dismissed as a lesser species, had proven themselves capable of standing alongside the galaxy's finest. Back on Earth, Ryan's name became synonymous with perseverance and ingenuity. His story was told in schools, his strategies analyzed in military academies, and his example used to inspire a new generation of explorers and warriors. For Ryan, the victory was just the beginning. As he prepared to leave the academy, he received an invitation to join an elite intergalactic task force, a team composed of the best soldiers from every species. It was a chance to continue proving humanity's worth, not just in competition but in real-world challenges that required unity and cooperation. Standing on the Academy's landing platform, Ryan looked out at the stars, the metal gleaming in his hand. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the doubts, the struggles, and the triumphs. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer a question. It was a promise. As his ship ascended into the vast expanse of space, Ryan knew one thing for certain: the galaxy had only seen the beginning of what humans were capable of.